Now that some real-life issues are out of the way, it's time to get back to business. And after the extreme aggravation I just went through, I was hoping to relieve my stress with an activity that's at least somewhat less irritating than the annual nightmare of filing taxes. But instead of that, I'm reviewing Supergirl. Man, this is one slippery slope I'm on. Episode 2 ended on the cliffhanger of our titular heroine getting ready to do an interview with Cat Grant. Not surprisingly, Episode 3 opens with her instantly showing us what a terrible idea that was.
Nobody ever asks my cousin these questions.
Superman is your cousin?
Holy crap, she's bad at this. You'd think she would have been prepared to get the third degree, considering she spent most of the last episode debating whether or not to do this interview, but all it takes is one or two not even hardball questions and she cracks like Humpty Dumpty.
This interview is over.
I have to go now. My planet needs me. I'm also from the same planet as Superman, bye! So by morning, Cat Grant has not only made Supergirl's familial connection to Superman worldwide news, but in the next 48 hours, she plans to write, print, and publish a huge expose on the Girl of Steel. This is turning into a massive headache that Kara was not prepared to deal with. Not only is everyone and their brother reminding her that doing the interview, completely unprepared no less, was probably not the best move she could have made, but the whole world knowing about her being related to Superman has now painted a huge target on her back. Good grief, look at this. Third episode in a row, she walks right into a trap. No wonder they incorporated her into the CW Zeroverse. Maybe the producers were hoping she'd make Barry Allen look like less of a screw-up by comparison. Thankfully, Kara's attempts at superheroing haven't gotten that bad. Yet. To her credit, Kara actually is able to get the better of Reactron here, and things are looking up. Until he makes a hasty retreat, and instead of flying after him, she just stands there like a jackass and lets him leave. What the hell, Kara? You're not gonna chase him down or take him to the DEO or anything? You have him on the defensive, his weapons are damaged, you could easily catch him and capture him right now. But she doesn't. She just lets him get away. There is literally no reason for this, except that if she did capture him here, the episode would end about 35 minutes early. If these hack writers could not be bothered to come up with any justification for why Supergirl does not go after him, then I'm not holding out hope for this episode being better than the last one. Oh boy, it's time for gender politics again. Turns out Reactron is an old foe of Superman's, and fought several high-profile battles with him, and Superman was never able to defeat him even though he's a non-powered human who Kara just got the better of without much hassle at all. Just in case you were wondering if girls weren't better than boys, allow the Supergirl writers to remind you how incredibly wrong you are. Since Reactron is human, he falls outside the DEO's jurisdiction and they can't legally go after him, so Kara's on her own on this one. But hunting him down might not be so hard since Wynn, has single-handedly built them their very own computer lab. In a Catco office where literally any of their co-workers could walk in at any time. Wow. This is truly baffling. The security at Star Labs may be so unbelievably pathetic that I've often wondered if they even have locks on the doors, but at least Team Flash are usually the only ones there. These clowns are headquartering up in the same building as their day job, which, may I remind you, is a media conglomerate. They might as well just put up a giant flashing neon sign with arrows pointing Cat Grant right to them. How are we supposed to take this seriously? A paint-sniffing chimp would think this is idiotic. I could stop the episode here. There's no saving it. I'm damn sure not gonna root for these nimrods to stop Reactron now. And it doesn't stop there. The stupid just keeps piling up. For the first time, people are advising Kara to call Superman because they think she'll need his help to take Reactron down, even though Kara easily defeated Reactron by herself just a few minutes ago. Because
he nearly killed Clark once.
Clark Kent is Superman.
You know, I almost made another sarcastic comment about secret identities and how no one can seem to keep them on this show. But frankly, it would be like teasing a 4-year-old with Down syndrome. I can't even take joy in laughing at them because their utter incompetence isn't funny. It's just sad. I kid you not, when watching this episode the first time, I got stuck on this scene for a good week and a half. I just couldn't get past it because the sheer metric ton of stupid on display here was downright suffocating. Every time I watched it, I had to step away from the computer and think about my life for a few minutes. These characters are so idiotic, I honestly wondered if they were written that way on purpose because the writers secretly wanted to tank their own show. And it's still the only explanation I can come up with because there's no way writing this bad happens by accident. Look at James here. He just accidentally blabbed his friend's secret identity to a guy he barely knows, and he doesn't even have enough self-awareness to know he fucked up. Superman's pal indeed.
You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.
That applies to all three of them, by the way. Still smarting from his encounter with Supergirl, Reactron kidnaps Maxwell Lord, who's going to be our Lex Luthor stand-in for the time being, leaving Kara feeling a wee bit sorry for herself. As well she should be. If only the writers thought so.
Hey, this isn't on you, Kara.
Excuse me? She let Reactron escape when she could have easily subdued and captured him. It's absolutely on her. In a desperate attempt to distract us from how bad the main plot is, we cut to Kat having some trouble with her exposé. Turns out she may have jumped the gun a little bit. She had no new information on Supergirl besides her and Superman being cousins and from the same planet, half of which most people could probably figure out just by looking at her. And since Kat might need a little more information than that for the no stone unturned article she'd envisioned, she decides to just make up a bunch of crap and write a thinly veiled hit piece instead. This does not track at all with Kat's previous behavior. In the first 2 episodes, while Kat was unbiased and professional enough to report the truth and call it like it is when Supergirl made a mistake, she was nevertheless pretty insistent on Supergirl as Catco's new meal ticket being seen in a positive light. So her channeling her inner J. Jonah Jameson from out of nowhere seems strangely out of character.
So if you perceive Supergirl as anything less than excellent, isn't the real problem you?
Supergirl embodies the worst traits of her generation.
When I branded her, there was an implicit promise that she would be, at a minimum, above average.
The earnestness without purpose, the unshakable belief that she has a right to be heard even when she has nothing to say.
So it is left to us to take control of Supergirl's narrative, save her from self-immolation.
Isn't the tone kind of a little nasty?
But screw character consistency. Who cares about that nonsense as long as it gives Kara yet another golden opportunity to emotionally validate herself? I'm sure that won't get nauseating if the writers keep doubling down on it.
She is every bit the hero he is.
She just easily defeated a villain that he could never beat. The only reason she let the bad guy escape is she didn't want to embarrass him. Isn't she the coolest? So after Wynn gets a lead on Reactron's location, Kara flies off for round 2 and quickly locates Maxwell Lord with her X-ray vision. Not sure why she didn't see or hear Reactron there when he was hiding about 10 feet away, but they didn't bother to explain any of the other plot holes in this episode. We can't expect them to start now. Now that Lord has repaired his armor, Reactron quickly gets the better of Supergirl, and things are looking bad for her, but luckily help arrives just in the nick of time. Oh hey Clark. Where the hell have you been for the last 10 plus years? Turns out Kara has James to thank for calling in Superman, but instead of thanking him, she's just butthurt that he didn't believe in her and thought she might need help. Even though she did need help. Why James would think that in the first place is what I can't figure out. Okay, this is a villain Superman always had trouble with, I get that. But you instantly cut him off at the knees when Kara beat him so easily in their first fight. So the threat of Reactron being a match for Superman just doesn't hold water. Nerfing him at the start of the episode didn't make Supergirl look like a badass, it just made the rest of the episode really confusing and nonsensical.
How am I supposed to really become a hero if Superman has to keep saving me?
Keep saving you? As far as I can see, this was literally the first and only time he's saved you or even seen you since the day you met. And as I recall, the issue in the first 2 episodes was that Superman wasn't around when you could have used his help or advice, but now that he just saved your life, suddenly he's around too much. Ugh, my head hurts. But not as much as it's about to. Kat throws a big party to celebrate her scathing character assassination of Supergirl, which gives James the chance to apologize to Kara for asking Superman to come save her life. Because, you see, James was the one truly at fault in that situation. Jimmy, buddy, don't even get me started, man. I pushed a baby stroller out of the way of a moving car last week and I've been apologizing to that kid's mother ever since. When will men learn? When? Back at DEO headquarters, Alex is busted when Henshaw walks in on her secretly working the Reactron problem. But rather than have this lead to something interesting, or any sort of consequences at all for that matter, she just convinces him to help, really, really easily, and then just does everything herself anyway.
So, how do we defeat this Reactron?
Gee, I don't know. The same way Kara defeated him in their first fight, maybe?
And I'll punch him real hard until he falls down. That always seems to work.
Then Reactron crashes the party looking for Supergirl, and Kara proceeds to remove her disguise in the middle of a room full of people. She could not be begging to get found out anymore if she'd done this while standing in front of one of those giant posters of Supergirl's face. But somehow no one notices thanks to the magic of plot convenience. Punching Reactron until he falls down doesn't seem to work this time, but Alex and Henshaw have come up with a solution. Just rip out that big glowy thing in his chest. Because the writers weren't satisfied with borrowing from the Superman mythos nonstop, and have thus moved on to lifting ideas from Iron Man. Afterward, Henshaw has had a change of heart and decides that in the future they will help Supergirl take on all manner of evil threats, human and alien alike. Just like that? Wasn't the whole reason Alex had to help Kara off the books because humans weren't the DEO's jurisdiction, but now they're just gonna be handling human threats officially because... f*** it? That's not how that works, guys. You can't just start tackling crimes in someone else's jurisdiction because you feel like it. There are separate departments for this sort of thing. And if it's that easy for Henshaw to just disregard all the government red tape, then why did he insist that they couldn't help with Reactron before? Can anybody explain this? Writers? Anyone? Buoyed by their success in stopping the bad guy, Alex encourages Kara to go hook up with James. But to her dismay, his ex is in town. Because Kara taking point on one love triangle just wasn't enough, so we needed to get her a second one. Yay! Then Clark chats with Kara, showing that they actually do seem to keep in touch after all, completely contradicting what the first two episodes would have us believe, mind you. He joins the line of people frothing at the mouth to tell Kara how amazing she is, and with that, we mercifully fade out on this mess. And not a moment too soon. This episode took me a long time to get through, and I hope you can see why. Absolutely nothing about this works, starting with our villain of the week. Reactron is easily dealt with right off the bat, and the only reason that's not the end of him right there is because Kara allows him to escape for no reason whatsoever. After that, everyone's insistence that Kara needs Superman's help to beat this guy seems utterly baseless, and him besting her to such a degree in their second encounter just comes off like a bunch of contrived bullshit. And if the lack of consistency with the villain wasn't bad enough, the rest of the cast is even worse. Why is everyone a complete idiot? Setting up their headquarters in the same office they work in, James carelessly blurting out Superman's secret identity, Kara taking her glasses off in a crowded room, it's as if they're trying to get caught. And maybe all that crap wouldn't be so infuriating if only our heroine came out of it looking good, or at the very least was fun to be around, but they couldn't even get that right. Kara is an absolute chore this week, and even with her constantly oscillating between being the stupidest person in the room and the most irrational, all the other characters only seem to exist to worship the ground she walks on.
Deep beneath that seething disdain, she respects you.
Trust that I'm going to save the day.
You should be proud of yourself.
Kara, you are amazing.
You're doing things that Superman couldn't even do.
Good God! It's as if the writers were desperate for the audience to think that Supergirl is the bestest superhero ever, but thought their audience was comprised entirely of tweenage Tumblr fangirls demanding non-stop emotional validation for a heroine who acts like an insecure, self-obsessed nut. I admit I don't exactly fit into that category, but a show can be made for a very specific demographic and still be well made in general. Sadly, Fight or Flight is anything but. I give it a final score of 2 out of 10, and that's me being generous. This is one of those episodes that's so bad it makes you wonder why the writing team responsible for it weren't fired on the spot. And yet, between the two of them, they had their names attached to no less than 6 more scripts for Season 1. Which means that someone behind the scenes actually thought this was so good it was worth repeating multiple times. That's how low the bar is. What the hell have I gotten myself into? The answer to that question will have to wait for next time. So like, share, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and excuse me as I cross every digit I have in the hope that it gets better from here. Because it couldn't possibly get much worse. Thorias out. Check out these recycled shots from the pilot. 3 episodes in and they're already reusing footage to save money. This looks like a job for shameless cost cutting.